Good morning and welcome to the Sunday morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. We are very happy to be making community together, and we gratefully acknowledge being physically located on the ancestral lands of the Chichimeca, Otomi, and Nahua people. We are a supportive and nurturing faith community, honoring and respecting the rich diversity of all who gather here today. In this place, you can bring your whole self and be accepted with love and friendship. My name is Hugh Tomlinson, and I am a member of the Sunday Service Committee and the Committee on Ministry. I am happy to be service leader today. Our own Reverend Tom Rosiello will be talking to us today about hope and courage. I'm very delighted to be here working with Tom today. It is because of Tom that I am a member of this fellowship. When we first met, we discovered that we had a common friend, the minister of my former Unitarian Universalist church in East Liberty, Michigan. Cynthia Landrum went to another home. Tom and I met and we started talking, and we soon discovered that Cynthia replaced him at his parish in Stow and Acton in Massachusetts. So that was kind of neat. In February of this year, I attended quite a few Zoom meetings from Silao, where my husband and I were living. And in February of this year, we moved here to San Miguel. Through Tom, we met many members of the fellowship, and they made us feel very welcome right away. And since then, I've become an active member of the Uufsma. Due to the lack of internet service today, our special meeting will be held next week following the service. Please remember to check out the table by the windows for many events you can sign up for our 35 and Thriving celebration of the fellowship. And especially check out the silent auction items. And please join us for coffee and cookies downstairs after the service. And one notice, please note that the deadline for RSVPing for the December 20th Caroling and Cookies event will be December 15th. This event is free and will be our last UUF event together of the 22 year. We are delighted to welcome our new member, Linda Raven. She would like us to know that she goes by her last name, Raven, as there seems to be many Lindas in San Miguel. She lived in San Miguel for 14 years, and after moving from Sonoma, California, she has 4 sons and 4 grandsons, all in Northern California. After her first career as an interior designer, she returned to college and then grad school to focus on women's studies and women and aging, along with organizational development and training. This is Raven's first time being affiliated with a UU congregation, originally attracted by our Sangha community. She enjoys the arts, learning, nature, and thinks of travel and experiencing other cultures as spiritual practices. Is Raven here today? Okay, thank you. Well, if she is here and she joins us for coffee, please introduce yourself and say hello. Do we have any visitors here today? If so, would you please stand so that we can see who you are and personally greet you at coffee hour after the service? Thank you. And finally, please check the order of service or the website, uufsma.org, to see the various events sponsored by the fellowship, how to access previous services on our YouTube channel, and information on how you can become a member. Today's service is being recorded so that others can view it later during the week.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tom Rosiello, the minister of the fellowship, and it is a joy to be with you again. I think for Hugh and we're particularly glad to be able to be here because pulling this service off today had more than a few last-minute glitches. Our two colleagues who were participating, first Felicia Moya, our violinist, had a terrible dental infection and is having dental surgery tomorrow. And last night, Paula became ill, and Malcolm stepped in as of 10 o'clock this morning. And we lost all internet, so we have no Zoom, so the parts of the service that were going to be that way had to be worked around too. So it's just great that we'll go ahead, and we have, we should recognize that we have such a deep bench of talent here that we can pull it off. We can pull off even plan G or H to get the service going. We gather in an especially rich season, time of the year, where so many traditions offer us an uplifting message of hope and courage. This week, in particular, we'll focus on the teachings we draw from the Christian season of Advent, and next week our focus will be on the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. However, more than any one tradition, we recognize the common threads that run through so many of the holidays at this time of the year. This season calls us to pause and step away from the frenetic pace of life and the commercialism of the season, and to pay attention to things more important. We are reminded to wake up, that a voice is calling to us, that something is on the horizon for us to embrace. We're to be watchful, ready for what's to come into our lives, if we're not to miss out on the joy, the power of this season. It's a season of active listening to music, to stories, and even more, to the voice within. This morning, I invite you to let go of the lists and the distractions and all the clutter in your mind and awake to the message of the season, the voice within. It's interesting, how many of the traditions of this season have rituals that involve light, lighting candles, lighting oil lamps, lighting bonfires. We Unitarian Universalists do not have a lot of rituals, but we do have a ritual of light that we practice every week. We do so to begin our sacred time together, to separate other time from this time, and to remind us that the light we share that guides us in community is ignited by a spark from the sacred flame that burns in each of us. And therefore now Hugh will light our chalice and create our sacred space. And today, from our chalice flame, we'll light an Advent wreath. In ancient times, candles were mounted on wagon wheels that were decorated with evergreens. They were lit during the dark weeks leading up to the winter solstice, when the return of the light was celebrated. Christians adopted a similar tradition of lighting candles during the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, celebrating the light that Jesus brought into the world. Hugh will light our candles starting with the first purple one. You'll see that there are 3 purple candles and 1 pink, and they can vary slightly in their meaning between different religious traditions and even the order in which they're lit. But the first one that he's just lit is for hope. The focus of this service, hope that uplifts our spirits, for hope that gives courage to those experiencing difficult times, hope that we claim for ourselves, and hope that we bring to others, especially in this season. The second purple candle we light for love. Love for those we know so well and for those we've never met. The kind of love that Jesus taught, love for the stranger, for the poor, for the downtrodden. the love that heals all wounds and puts to flight all fears. And now we light the pink candle for this third week. It's a candle of joy, reminding us that even in times of struggle, times of waiting, even times of defeat, there's still joy. Joy especially for the simple blessings of life, the joy of sharing this time with family and friends and community, and a reminder that we are called to bring joy to the world. So may hope and love and joy fill our hearts this season, and may we share them generously, especially with those who need them most. I invite you now to join in singing a beautiful 9th century Advent hymn that invites us to bring the light of hope, of love, of truth within us to dwell. It's hymn number 225 in the gray hymnal. I believe our technology still permits that the words are also going to appear on the screen. I invite you to rise as you're able, to join in singing, and please remain standing for the covenant and affirmation.
Give comfort to
You know, it's really funny. For 20 years, I made lots of announcements as a flight attendant. And I feel like I should just say, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached a cruising altitude now. It's smooth air. Please relax and enjoy the rest of the service. And now I invite you to join together in reciting this fellowship's covenant. First, I'll read it in English, and then my husband, Jesus, will do it in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Please be seated. We now enter into a very special time in our service, a time when members and friends share significant joys, sorrows, and concerns with their community. When each is shared, we light a candle indicating that that thought, that prayer, that person is held by all of us this morning. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern that you would like shared in an upcoming service, please email it to me. Our first candle is lit by Jeannie Seward McGee, and I will read her words. John and I will celebrate the life of our beloved son, Tim, this week. He gave us 39 years of much joy, but also much worry. His transition 7 years ago on December 15th, 2015, still leaves us with an enormous feeling of great sadness. Most parents who have lost a child eventually do stop grieving. However, they continue to mourn the loss of them. As a parent of 4 children, I will never stop loving them. They all remain in my heart forever. And like Jeannie, so many parents and families mourn the loss of a child, especially at this time of year. And we light our second candle in solidarity with those around the world organized by the Compassionate Friends who tonight will light candles to remember in a very special way a child who has died. Our hearts go out to all the parents and families who have lost a child. For some in our community who have lost loved ones or who are suffering physical or mental health issues at this time of year can be particularly difficult. And we light a candle of support and encouragement for them. And now we light a candle for Felicia Moy, who was to be our featured musician today, but is having lots of pain and will have dental surgery tomorrow morning. And for Paula Pease, who would have been at the piano, but for the fact that she woke up quite ill this morning. And for Dan Neuspiel, who became ill yesterday, but seems to be doing better today, believes he had food poisoning. And Ann and Rich Feldman, who are recovering great from COVID, but still precautious, as is another candle for Ann Geyer, who would, part of our plan change, who would be in with our children this morning, teaching them, but we had to move that off too. But she prepared the whole lesson. As we've been doing every week, we're going to light our blue and yellow candle for all those who have lost their lives, their homes, and been otherwise affected by the war in Ukraine, especially at this time of power outages and loss of heat in the cold winter months. And a final candle for all the joys, sorrows, and concerns held deep in our hearts, but which remain unspoken today. We carry them all joys, sorrows, and concerns from our community and all the challenges in our own lives with us into a time of silent prayer, reflection, or meditation, guided by an improvisation on the one of the lovely tunes of this season, Greensleeves.
Good morning. My name is Ellen Steury, and I'm a member of the Social Action Committee. By introduction of today's offering, I will speak just briefly about one of the nonprofits the fellowship supports, Caminos de Agua. As many of you know, the mission of Caminos is to improve access to clean water. One way it does this is to help communities capture and store rainwater. El Garabatillo is one such community that I was fortunate to visit, where I learned directly from community members about both the process and the results of Caminos assistance. The love, pride, and gratitude expressed that day are truly unforgettable. El Garabatillo is located in an agricultural area to the north of San Miguel, where community wells are simply drying up. So Caminos, working closely with and through community leaders, first undertook to educate the community about the value and safety of rainwater catchment systems, overcoming substantial initial distrust, which is typical, and then to educate the community about how to construct and maintain the water storage tanks. The transformation has begun for El Garabatillo. While there is a long way to go, every one of the almost 200 households in El Garabatillo has applied for a cistern. In the meantime, thanks to this work, the elementary school can provide clean water to its students, and the lucky families who have already received tanks share what they can with other members of the community. What I saw that day were people that had become empowered to reverse the dire water situation facing them. They knew it, they were proud of it, and they were very thankful for the assistance from Caminos de Agua. They express their gratitude very clearly and openly, including by laying out a true feast of home-cooked foods and hand-harvested cactus fruits to share with the visitors that day, a table of thanksgiving and hope for their improving circumstances. Part of what you give today will go to the nonprofit organizations that the fellowship funds, and part will go to sustaining the fellowship itself. Please help us continue to help others by making an offering, whether in the offering basket, through the link in the chat box on your screen, or at the uufsma.org website. Your offering will now be gratefully received.
De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
I'd like to share two readings with you this morning. The first is a famous poem by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tunes without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that keeps so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asks a crumb of me. And these words, written by Unitarian Universalist writer Norman Cousins. The case for hope has never rested on provable facts or rational assessment. Hope, by its very nature, is independent of the apparatus of logic. What gives hope its power is not the accumulation of demonstrable facts, but the release of human energies generated by the longing for something better. The capacity for hope is the most significant fact in life. It provides human beings with a sense of destination and the energy to get started. It enlarges sensitivities. It gives value to feelings as well as to facts. Now I invite you to rise as you're able and join in singing hymn number 346 in the gray hymnal. Come sing a song with me, and I think the words will also be on the screen. seated. This is such a rich season of beauty and meaning-making. It's certainly an experience of beauty to walk down the streets of San Miguel at night and see those beautiful pierced tin stars glowing with their warm light. For some, maybe they're just party lights. But the other night, as I walked down the silent, empty street, those lights seemed to twinkle with an uplifting and important message of the season. Perhaps we don't see it quite as clearly as our ancient forebears did when they lit bonfires in the darkness of the solstice with a hope critical to their survival, that the light would return and the days would lengthen and life would return to barren places. But still, I think that we too sense a message in the lights of the street and the trees and the candles burning in Advent wreaths, or next week on Hanukkah menorahs. For me, all these candles and lights of the season are preachers of a gospel of hope, a message that lifts our spirits, guides our way, and even does so, and especially does so, in the darkest days of our lives. What the holidays of this season celebrate is indeed hope and courage, the courage to persevere and to continue on the journey. They're not about some ancient stories, really, something that happened long ago or maybe never happened. They're about what's possible today with hope. Why do the Jews celebrate the ancient festival of the lights of Hanukkah? The Maccabee people won their liberation long ago. They restored the light to their sacred temple a long time ago. But next week, we'll light those menorah candles of hope on that Hanukkah, that Hanukkah menorah, because there's still hatred to overcome, still liberation to be won, still the need to light a lamp claiming our sacred space. Why do Christians still celebrate Advent, light those purple and pink candles on that Advent wreath as we did today? If their Messiah, their light of the world, was born 2,000 years ago, because there still is a Messiah waiting to be born within us. As our beautiful Advent hymn expressed, this season is an invitation for love and truth and hope and light to come within us to dwell, to be born in us. And isn't that the Messiah that the world is waiting for? We light these candles to remind us that we still hold hope in our hearts, to share it and to give us a little light to continue on our journey. And embedded in all these holiday celebrations is a recognition that hope is perhaps the most critical force for human survival. In all these holidays, there's a recognition that hope does not come easily much of the time. It's fragile as that little bird in the Gale and Emily Dickinson's poem, but also as persistent as well, never stopping singing its song, and perhaps even singing it more sweetly in the toughest of times. I don't want to make it sound easy. Lots of times it takes real courage to hold on to hope. You know, this week I was watching the news, something I do way too often, and there was a report on the high number of suicide deaths among young people serving at a particular Navy shipyard. Maybe you saw that. The report said working conditions were not good, but more significantly, there was so little hope that things would change. Hope for a meaningful future was sadly lacking among those young sailors who took their lives. In a CDC report that identifies hopelessness as a significant risk factor for suicide, the author wrote, Someone who has hope is not likely to end his or her life. Things may be miserable at the moment, but individuals will hang on if they know there is a light at the end of the tunnel and a chance that things will get better. It's the person who has lost hope who sees suicide as a viable option. You know, tonight people all over the world will light candles in memory of children who died way too young. Some of those children also died by suicide. Many were LGBTQ kids who could not find hope in the world of increasing hate and oppression. Now, I know suicide is a complex issue, and I don't want to make it sound like that just an encouraging word of hope could have changed things. Yet the loss of hope for one's future can play a significant role in the decision to take one's life. On that same news program, I saw a report from the Ukraine interviewing ordinary people who were enduring truly great hardship, but made the best of tough times and worked together because their hope was very much alive. They had hope for a better time, for the return of their country to them. That hope gave them the courage to continue the journey, while the loss of hope sadly led those young sailors to end their life. As Norman Cousins proffered in that reading I shared with you earlier, the capacity for hope is the most significant fact in life. It provides human beings with a sense of destiny and the energy to get started. There will be dark days in our lives, in our world, but hope is what enables us to survive them. It's only hope that keeps us going when the facts around us or the facts within our own bodies and in our own minds send us a message of despair and defeat. And that's true on the world stage, but I think it's even more true in our own personal lives. Hope is important in every stage of our lives. But interestingly, the hope that we have for our lives when we're 15 is certainly not the same hope we have at 50 or 80 or 90. So too our hopes change when we face serious illness or injury, or when we go through a major tragedy or disruption in our life. As a minister, as a friend, I have walked with many on the path of what I would call changing hope. This time of year, I often think about them. And this week, one of them in particular came to mind. When I first began as minister in the church where I'm now emeritus, the one Hugh referred to earlier, there was a young family, a mom, we'll call her Susan, her husband, and 2 young sons. Susan was a beautiful woman, a lawyer by profession, always in great physical shape and well-dressed. During a routine medical exam, some minor abnormality was discovered in one of her breasts. She decided to have genetic testing done, and it showed she was highly likely to develop breast cancer. One option was to have a prophylactic mastectomy, the removal of the breast completely, even though there was no tumor, as a precaution against cancer developing. She wrestled hard with what to do. I remember her saying to me, finally, "I can live without these," meaning her breasts, "because I want to see my kids grow up." She had the procedure as soon as she possibly could, and it was not easy. I visited her as soon as she came home, and she had drains coming out of her and was lying in pain on the couch in her home, and 2 kids were running around the house wildly. So I said something like, trying to be helpful, "Maybe I can get someone to take the kids for a bit while you recover." She smiled and said, "Thank you, but oh no. I did this," meaning the surgery, "so I could be here for them, and I don't want to miss any of it." My hope is that we prevented the cancer so I can be here for them for a long time. Things went on, and Susan recovered from the surgery, was back practicing law, and even took on the challenge of being a foster parent to a third child, a little girl who had been badly abused and had severe emotional problems. But then it was discovered that despite the radical preventive steps taken, she had breast cancer, and the prognosis was not great. But she held on to hope. She went through some very, very aggressive chemo, losing her hair, her beauty, becoming very weak. But despite the progressing cancer, she decided she wanted to adopt her foster child. Who adopts a child when they have aggressive cancer? Her husband was not in favor of it, but he relented, and she put on an incredible good face for the social service agency, and the adoption went through. We talked about it, and she said she had to do it because the young girl had lots of issues and would not likely be adopted by anyone else, and she needed the security of having a mother. This time, Susan's hope was that she could be around long enough to make a difference in that girl's life, to be their mother at least during some important developmental years. Susan was not an easy person, and she and her husband were often not on the same page. She insisted they divorce. At this point, her cancer was advancing, and she was starting another round of treatment. Who files for divorce with advanced cancer and 3 kids? She told me she was hoping for a new relationship in her life, someone who was fully a kindred spirit, a soulmate. Amazingly, she found a new relationship with a wonderful man. Who does this with what now was cancer metastasized to several parts of their body? When she introduced me to him, she said that her hope was that they could have a few good years together. All the while, the kids are growing up, and her hope was to see them all become adults, or at least graduate from high school. It was not too long before she was diagnosed with cancer in the brain. She began extensive radiation treatment. When I visited her, she said, "I hope I don't lose my mind. I want to be mentally present for my kids till the end." Now, perhaps 12 years has passed since that mastectomy, and she didn't resemble the young woman I first met at all. Cancer had ravaged her body, but not her spirit. She was still hopeful for what was next. Her oldest son, with whom she was especially close, was a really brilliant young pianist. He was now graduating from high school and auditioning for music school. His recital was scheduled to be at our church, and she was again in the hospital getting more treatment. So I went to see her to tell her that we would make arrangements to record the recital for her. She'd have none of that. "I hope to be there," she said. Well, a big crowd from the community and from the church came to support her son, knowing the heavy weight that his mother's illness was having upon him. The son said to me just before the program was to start, "You know, my mom is coming." My heart sank. I worried whether he would be able to play when he saw that she wasn't there. The crowd was gathered, and I looked outside and saw a car pull up in front of the door. Out of the car, barely able to walk, emerged Susan, beautifully dressed. With help, she dragged herself to the door. But before she entered the room where the recital was, a radiance came over her. It was as if the effects of the cancer treatment fell away. She walked proudly into the room, sat down, and smiled at her son, who was just about to start the first piece on the program. And it was a truly amazing recital. Her oldest son got into an excellent music school. The second son, who had had lots of problems and anger issues, miraculously turned out a great kid. And when I left the church, I think he was just going into his senior year of high school. And the young girl that she adopted was really tough to handle for a really long time, even when she was sick. But finally, she accepted the motherly love that she so much needed. The cancer was relentless, but so was the hope. It became hope for a day without pain, or to see one more accomplishment of her kids, or just to spend some peaceful time with her new partner, and finally, for a peaceful death surrounded by the one she loved. She died about a year after I retired from the church. There was absolutely no medical reason why she lived as long as she did. But there was a spiritual one, her undying hope, ever-changing to fit the situation, but never waning. And you know, Susan had incredible strength and courage, but she did not sustain that hope by herself. Her friends, her doctors, all the medical people, her family, her church, her community continued to give her hope. Hope can be cultivated in our lives by others, individuals and communities. Just before the sermon, we sang that hymn that I know is a favorite of many of you, and a line always jumps out of that. I'll give you hope when hope is hard to find. You know that we, and I mean Unitarian Universalists, we've been singing that song for a very long time. Not those exact words or that particular tune, but the song of hope. The founder of Universalism, John Murray, by the way, who's the person that our children in religious education are exploring today, certainly lived that message. Murray was raised in England in a Calvinist family of harsh judgment, believed in an angry, judgmental God who predetermined everyone's fate, and surely most were going to hell. Not much room in that theology for hope. But then Murray heard a famous English preacher, James Riley, preach his doctrine of loving kindness, of a loving God, not a harsh God, of universal salvation and not damnation, and of the power of hope. Murray embraced the teaching. He preached it in his Methodist church in England, but was rejected and persecuted for it. Life turned horribly bad for John Murray. His young wife and one-year-old daughter both died, and the medical bills from trying to save them put him in debtor's prison. In 1770, a broken man, wanting to escape everything, came to America. The ship he was on got stuck on a sandbar off the coast of New Jersey, and small boats brought the passengers ashore onto the property of a farmer named Potter. Potter had built a chapel on his property and was looking for a preacher to deliver a sermon there. Murray was not interested, but Potter spoke of his beliefs about hope and loving God, and Murray realized that they were the same as his. So Murray agreed to preach one Sunday, as it was going to take 2 weeks anyway to get the tides high enough to raise the boat, and the farmer had treated them and fed them well. That was the beginning of the faith tradition called Universalism. And central to this faith of this restored broken man was the gospel of hope. And I use that word gospel intentionally because it means good news. Murray was called to give those weighed down by negativism, by the harsh judgment of Calvinist religion, by simply the despair of life, by illness, by loss, by grief, a message of hope. And he also enlisted all his followers to do the same. Here's the words he charged them with. Go out in the highways and byways and give the people blanketed with decay and crumbling Calvinism something of your new vision. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it to bring more understanding to the hearts and minds of men. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. The same call went out on the Unitarian side of our family tree as well. Theodore Parker, a mid-19th century Unitarian minister and abolitionist, was a man who lived hope and courage. I suspect that many of you know some of his most famous words. Dr. King quoted them quite frequently, and they're on his memorial. Parker wrote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Think about what those words mean. They are a statement of unwavering hope, but also an acknowledgement that things don't happen overnight, that it's not easy. There are struggles along the way. Parker's words took on new meaning with King, who wrote, "We must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope." And the contemporary Black theologian Cornel West, when speaking about the ongoing struggle of racism, said, "I'm not an optimist, but I'm a prisoner of hope." The call of our faith tradition is to hold on to hope, to bring it to others, to find it in ourselves. Right here in this time together, we give and we receive hope, and we rediscover hope in ourselves. In our outreach, whether it's through social justice grant giving or through welcoming a diversity of people here in this room, many of whom are not welcome in other houses of worship here, we give hope. Hope is the promise of the ages, and it never stops singing. Listen for the song when you need to hear it. Share the song when you know others need to hear it. We all have challenges. These are rather challenging times. It sometimes takes real courage to hold on to hope. Despair can creep in on us. We've all been there. But as Alexander Pope once wrote, hope springs eternal in the human breast. It's planted in each of us. If we nurture it in our lives and in each other's, it will surely guide us through the dark times and bless us in ways unimaginable. Why not make hope your gift to yourself and to others this season? And please now join me in concluding this sermon in song, hymn 344, A Promise Through the Ages sings verses 1, 2, and 3. And please rise as you're able and join in singing. Please be seated. One sec, Hugh. I got a few announcements first. Okay. Well, thanks for being with us. And I'm so sorry that the other half of our congregation, that's usually on Zoom, could not be with us today, but hopefully they'll get to take part in this service by watching it at a later date. As I said, today's service, we really owe a thanks to Malcolm and to lots of people, our technicians and everyone, for dealing with all the things that were thrown at us, starting at about maybe Friday afternoon when we had this whole thing planned and then went off. So hope we made it through okay for you, and hope you'll be with us again next week. Hopefully we'll be on Zoom as well. I want you to take note of all the 35th anniversary things that are coming up. We have had several things that have happened, from the book signing that Judith Daniel had a huge crowd for, to wonderful cookie baking, and to yard sale and the auction going on. And to this point, we have raised $8,500 towards our goal of $10,000. This Friday, I see Jürgen here. You can ask him about this. There's a unique Sanctorum sound spa, and if that isn't enough to get you in the good spirit, you can have a margarita to go with it at the party. So that's this week, Friday, correct? Yes. And then Tuesday, the 20th, you are invited to a very special holiday event. We're calling it Candlelight, Caroling, Cookies and Cake. We're going to have lots of great musicians. It's at Malcolm and my house. You have to sign up for it. I think we're about 60 or 70 signed up, but there's still seats. So, we hope that with the conclusion of these events, we'll reach the $10,000 goal. And today, do you see all this stuff over here? Go this way out today, because there's still events to sign up for, auction items that you can still bid. By the way, you can still bid online as well. But be sure to take a walk by the tables and either sign up for an event or for an item. There's still some places at dinners, I think, is available as well. So, I think, hopefully I got everything in. Did I get everything in? Yes, okay. All right. Let's conclude with this benediction. These are words from two Unitarian Universalist ministers, Daniel Cantor and Albert Q. Perry. Abandon your cynicism, your despair, your short view of humanity. We are not forsaken or forlorn. Be courageous. We can be each other's dream unrestrained by desperation. We can see beyond the horizon of setbacks and defeat. Our hope is larger than our limitations and braver than our bodies. Through our hope, we escape the remorseless march of time and the lack of meaning in material existence. Hopes do not die, and a hoping heart is the stuff of eternity. We now extinguish the chalice flame that we kindled in the beginning of our service, but not the light of hope, of truth, of love, those we carry with us in our hearts.